heart is in a holy place. When we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Theologian and scholar Cornell West teaches that intimacy is what love looks like in private, and justice is what love looks like in public. So here, we'll be talking about what it looks like to live with love at the center of our lives today. So it is that work of intimacy, which some people confuse with romance, but they're not exactly the same. Intimacy, good morning. Do you want to hold my hand as I talk? Oh, glad to see you, Ollie. Intimacy is the work of knowing and being known, of having a place where people know who you are and are excited to see you, and are excited to show up for you in the ways you might need it. And the work of justice is the work of changing systems and structures to get us all a little more free. And sometimes people act as though those are not on a continuum, but they are. And so if we are to be people who live with love at the center, it means we show up for each other. We work to know one another and allow ourselves to be known by others, in friendship, in small groups, in family, in relationship, in work, in whatever that looks like. And that work, that intimacy, that being known, often is what inspires us to do the larger work that we are called to do, to make a world that is a bit more loving and a bit more like the beloved community we dream about here. So come, let us gather and reflect on this important work, so we might have a little more strength and a little more courage to go out and do it in the world. So come, let us gather together. Come, let us worship together.
So welcome to People's Church. All people are welcome here as we navigate some of the complexities of and challenges of our lives, using many of the resources that are available to us, including science, philosophy, the arts, works from major world religions, and our own individual experiences. I'm Bob Davis, a member of the Sunday Services Committee, And People's Church is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Here we strive to be a beloved community serving our diverse world. And this is an important statement worth repeating. Here we strive to be a beloved community embracing and serving our diverse world. We are an independent congregation selecting how to focus our energies with the assistance of resources from the Unitarian Universalist Association. We recognize the value of belonging to another larger association of religion, primarily through the sharing of resources, helping selecting ministers, increasing our political viability or visibility. But the UUA isn't our only other organization we cooperate with. For example, we cooperate with Isaac, the local interfaith organization, just focused more on local issues of equity and inclusion. Today, we are discussing some of the wording and goals of the UUA, and Reverend Rachel will have more about that. But it's also important to remember that what goes on in the UUA is something we take advantage of and try to interact with and cooperate with, but ultimately what this church does is decided by you, the members, and by our Board of Trustees and by Reverend Rachel. Anyway, welcome for a wonderful service today. Now some announcements.
So there are many events happening after church today. And there are a few that are open to folks who aren't part of teams or groups or have already signed up in advance. So we're going to have a substance use disorder and overdose prevention training in room 19, which is the big meeting room at the top of the stairs. This is a chance to learn about how addiction impacts us and be trained to administer Narcan, which is a medicine that can save the life of someone in the midst of an opioid overdose. It's amazing that this exists. And then we also have our Inquirers class, which is our class for newcomers or anybody who's maybe been here for a while and still feels that there's stuff they need to learn about this place. So today it's a double session because of a weather delay. And so we'll be focusing on Chalice Circles, which is our small group ministry here, a way to know and be known, pastoral care, how we care for each other, and Sunday services. So if you have longed for a detailed talk through of why we do what we do on Sundays, this is the gathering for you. That is in room 8, which is a room right back that way. For both of these events, there's a light lunch and childcare provided. The lunch will be served in the room that you're in for your meeting. In our weekly email this week, there was a note that went out about a presentation about Gaza by someone from Gaza at St. Thomas More Church this coming Saturday. That has been canceled and rescheduled. The new time is March 24th at 2:30, which is here and it'll be here in the Commons. So see Karen Tinklenberg if you have any questions about that. On March 16th, Isaac, our congregation-based community organizing group that we're part of, is hosting a virtual fireside chat with Layla Saad, the author of Me and White Supremacy. I encourage you to come. We'll be having a viewing party here, or you can watch wherever you are. We have copies of her book and the journal that goes along with it available for donation in our foyer. And if you're with us on Zoom, we can figure out a way to get it to you. And next Sunday, we're kicking off our stewardship season at the church. So this is when we talk about money and invite people to make their commitments for the coming year. And we're doing something different this year. So we're inviting people to gather in smaller groups. Next week, there'll be a sign up for these groups that we're calling Grateful Gatherings. They'll happen throughout March. a mix of events here at church and in people's homes, many of them over a snack or a meal. And this will be a chance to get to know a random group of other church folks, talk about the role the church plays in your lives, how money works at the church. We'll have people from finance and stewardship there to help you go through the budget and really poke at it in ways that are harder to do if we're in a large group. And talk about generosity and what that might look like for us. So the signups will be available both in the weekly email that goes out on Friday and here at church on Sunday. So please sign up. We've done a couple of practice runs of these gatherings with leaders, and I've been really inspired by it and feel like I've gotten to know people better and just develop that intimacy that I've talked about. So even if you feel like you already know exactly what you're going to pledge and you've done this a million times, this will be worth your time. And now we are going to sing. We got the wrong hymnal number in your order of service. It's 361. So if you're following by the book, please turn to that page, or you can follow along with the big words up on our screen.
I invite you to rise and body your spirit to do that singing together. And to rejoice and come in, and to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. One more time. And to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in.
All right, will Hazel Ruth come forward and help me light the chalice today? Each week, we light this chalice, taking the time to reflect on its meaning. You are joining us remotely. Please type in the chat box where you are lighting your chalice. Today's reading is by Jennifer Grayson, Drawn Together. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods. Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world.
In addition to the flame we have kindled here at People's Church, chalices are lit today in the Millwood neighborhood and at the Landing Apartments. What a gift to be together in time, if not in space. Now I would like to invite our children forward for a conversation about some of the objects on this table up here. Oh, we're going to be right down here this time. Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you. I am so glad that you guys are with us today. And a couple of weeks ago, do you remember that I had fossils to share? Then we looked at some rocks that had fossils in them. Yeah, well, this is a different kind of fossil we're working with today. So I am wondering, who can tell me what these are? Oh, Xander, do you know?
Records.
And what did people used to, or maybe still, use a record for? To play music. Okay. These are things we use to play music. Yeah, because we don't always have a Jennifer and a Savannah around to make our music for us live. So we might have to listen to a recording. Okay. What's next? Oh, what about this one? Does somebody know what this one is? Oh, Teddy, do you know what this is?
I have a Lego one of these cassette tapes.
You know it because you have it in Lego?
Yeah, I have a Lego cassette tape.
Okay. I know. Some of us who are a little older than you remember these when they weren't in Lego. I know.
Yeah, my parents remember that.
Your parents remember them? I know. Okay. So then we had cassette tapes. And what did you use a cassette tape for?
I think it was recording. Wasn't it like recording something?
You could record and you could play music on it. Yeah, okay. Now we have these objects. Oh, it's a CD.
Or DVDs.
These ones are CDs though. Yeah, it's hard to tell what they look like. Okay, they're shiny on the back. What, Catherine, what did people use a CD for?
They can to play music.
For playing music. Okay, and I have one more on this side of the table. We've got this object. Oh.
Okay. It's not a.
What is this? Oh, Xander. Oh, DeForest, do you know? What is this?
A remote?
It's not a remote. It kind of looks like it could be, doesn't it? Xander, do you know?
I forgot what it's called, but it plays music.
It plays music. You follow the trend. This is called an iPod. And this was a very big deal for a while, but it's not anymore. And so you have one at home? No.
I have one.
You have one? So you used it to play music. And when you guys play music, what do you use? DeForest, what do you use?
Like a phone.
A phone. Yeah, that is what we use at my house.
Alexa.
Alexa, okay, what else?
Radio.
The radio, yeah. The car radio, okay. What else do you guys use to play music?
My dad's really fancy, glowing music player thingy.
Your dad's really fancy glowing music player? That sounds amazing. What do you use to play music?
My tablet.
Your tablet, yeah. What do you use, Ollie?
The microphone.
Microphone? Oh, you're singing your own music? I love that. What about you, Xander?
Radio.
The radio. So there are so many different ways to play music. Is the music really different if you're playing it on a record or if you're playing it off your phone or off your tablet? Does the music change?
No.
No. You can play the same song in a bunch of different ways, right?
I just like.
Yeah. I mean, assuming it's, old enough that they still make it on a record, I guess. So people have found a lot of different ways to make music happen in their lives, right? We have records, we have CDs, we have tapes. Okay, now we're gonna go to this next object. Holding this up.
This is easy.
It's a phone.
Cell phone. It's a cell phone.
It's not a cell phone.
This is a cell phone.
Nope. So this is something called a rotary phone.
Oh.
And so you would push the numbers around. Yeah, push the numbers around when you were dialing. You've seen them in shows. Yeah, they're hard to find around anymore. Some people have them.
I saw them in the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh, maybe in a movie. Yeah, it can happen. Okay. And so what do people use a phone for? Calling. Yep.
That's main use.
That's what we'd use a rotary phone for. Okay. What about this?
Emergency phone.
This is an emergency phone? Yeah.
I don't know the correct name, but it's an emergency phone.
This is not a cell phone. See, it has all these cords on it. What do you? It is kind of like a giant bungee cord. They used to get so tangled.
Emergency phone.
An emergency phone, like you might have it as a backup somewhere.
I have one at my grandma's house.
There's one of these at your grandma's house? Yeah.
Number
Yeah. You guys are making all these grown-ups feel really old. Did you know that? Really old.
Yeah.
But it's good to help them remember sometimes, isn't it? Yeah, because they are. But me too. Okay, this is called a landline phone. So you'd had this long cord that plugged into the wall, and you could only walk a certain distance away.
Oh, I've heard of those before.
You've heard of them?
I
Yeah.
have one at my grandma's house. It's in my room.
And so what would you use a landline phone for? For calling, yeah. So what do you guys use if you're going to call somebody? Sandra, what do you use?
Cell phone.
A cell phone, yeah. What else?
My watch.
Your watch. Wow, okay. What else? What do you use?
We might use a tablet.
A tablet, yeah. You can do like video calls now pretty easy. We have people on Zoom or really video calling into this moment right here. Anything else that you use when you want to call somebody?
Walkie-talkie.
You could use a walkie-talkie. That's a great idea. Anything else? No.
That's all.
That's all we can think of. So people have wanted to talk to one another for a long time in a lot of different ways. And they use a lot of different tools. So when I look at all of these things, I think about how people have wanted to do the same things.
One more.
Oh, that's just a toy rotary phone.
I got one of those.
Yeah.
I got one of those cute little guys in my basement. Toy Story. Yeah, from Toy Story. Yeah, I got one of those in my basement.
You know it from Toy Story. Okay. All the ways you learn about. So I'm going to be talking to grown-ups about how we might be changing some of our words. And I want them to think about how the medium is not the mission, right? So there's different ways we can do things. We can talk to people on a rotary phone or a cell phone. We can play music on records or on iPods or on our phones. And the thing we're doing is pretty similar, but we're doing it in different ways. And these grown-ups are going to be talking about words that haven't changed since 1985.
No way.
I know, it's a long time ago, right?
Mario.
Like when Mario started?
Mario.
Yeah.
When Mario started.
Back when people were using landlines and cassette tapes. I think CDs were maybe starting if you were really cutting edge, but I don't think so. I don't remember them from that age. And so maybe there's things why, as Unitarian Universalists, we need to update our technology to be in this land of calling people on our watches or our tablets or all of those different things. So thank you for exploring these objects with me, you guys. And thank you for helping these grown-ups feel all kinds of feelings about how things have changed. It's okay. It's good to be reminded that things are changing and not everybody knows the same stuff.
Hello.
So we're gonna sing and you guys are gonna go to class. And these will be sitting out if you want to play with them later.
We have a dragon problem.
Okay.
Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go. Go forth in peace in search of wisdom, with love to guide you on your way. And may the joy of life surround you wherever you may go.
People's people are generous people. And about once a month, we gather up our offering and send it out into the community to do good and important work in the world. Today is our special offering to benefit COPE Network. This is the third time this year we've tried to make this happen. So we tried in November and then we had a COVID outbreak. We tried in January and then the weather meant we were worshiping only online that day. But now we are here. I felt this day might be jinxed, but we've made it this far. So Nancy, please come and tell us about some of the good work you all do. Everyone else, please be as generous as you can.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to be here and welcoming me. Third time's a charm, right? So I do this work because addiction affects 1 in 3 families. It's closer to home than most people think. And unfortunately, there's a lot of pain and struggle that goes along with understanding what it means to be a person with addiction, as well as what it means to be a family member affected by that. I do this work because my daughter died of a heroin overdose in 2012. And unfortunately, I didn't have the information that I thought was necessary for me to understand it in a way that was supportive and helpful. And that's why I created Cope Network, was to allow us to be able to learn and have an understanding, not just of what families go through, because the emotions that they go through is very real. But on the other side of that is the person who's struggling with substance use disorder. And our goal is to create that perspective so that we can learn from each other and to be able to be supportive. Because we know that when somebody finds recovery, we want that bridge to still be there. So our organization is open to the community. Everything we do is we either do free or by donation, allowing to create connections. So we do activities that create connections to bring people together under maybe a gaming night. It could be a movie night. It could be yoga, tai chi, whatever it might be, and allowing everybody to be there without labels. Because we know often labels hurt people, and we offer programs that are about education, resources, being able to understand from a perspective that is helping people to heal. Healing in our communities is such a vital time because we're losing so many people every single day to addiction. And this isn't just about opioid use. So today I will be doing a presentation about substance use disorder, understanding the underlying connections and causes, as well as being able how to recognize and respond to an opioid overdose. Everybody is welcome to attend this. There will be free naloxone available to individuals who are interested in being able to get that. Please check us out, learn more about what we do and why we do what we do. We're seeing more and more people affected every single day. Unfortunately, we're becoming a very stressed out community, a very stressed out society. This is having an impact on all of us, especially our young people. And that's where we need to understand that if we want to have a community that is based in understanding, coping, and healing, we have to help our young people today so they don't grow up into a situation where they're finding substances as a way to cope with what they're dealing with in their daily stress. I would be happy to be around and have any questions or answers for anybody who has questions about our organization. We're an organization that is about community, and we have to come together as a community for healing. And this is such an important part of what we do at Cope Network. It stands for Community Outreach, Prevention, and Education Network. And it's an organization that we have created out of love and understanding for all people. That includes those who are going through substance use disorder or addictions and the families who are affected by that. So thank you all very much for being able to be thoughtful about helping to support our organization and learning more about what we do in our community. And hopefully you'll come to join some of our community connections that we have coming up. The best way to know what's going on is to check out our website. As we know, we are still going through COVID, so we want to make sure people, if there are a program that we're doing is not been affected by an absence of an instructor or having to be postponed or moved to another date, always check out our website before coming to any of our activities. Thank you very much for caring about us and thinking about what we do.
Make channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we cease such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dry. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we
Please join me in reciting our words of thanks. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love which none of us can accomplish alone.
People's Church is a community that supports one another. One of the ways we do that is we take time when we gather for worship to share the highs and lows and milestones of our lives. So if you have something you want to share with our gathered community today, if you're on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat box. If you're here in person, I invite you to come forward, speak briefly, and share your name, and place a stone in our bowl of water. I now place a few more stones for all of the joy and all of the sorrow we're holding quietly in our heart today, the joy and sorrow in our wider community and in our wider world. Sources of reason and radiance, sources of courage and compassion, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this day. May the suffering be soothed. May the weary find rest. May the sick be tended. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. And may all of us know we are wrapped in a love that surrounds us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. It is hard to be a human in this world sometimes. There is all the pain and loss that we hold in our own hearts. And there's all that is unfolding in the world, from the rising fascism in our country to the tragic death of Next Benedict, a Two-Spirit teen who was killed at school or was assaulted at school and later died. And there isn't a practice that I know that makes the pain of existing with awareness go away. But I am going to show you one small practice that makes it a little easier for me to keep going and perhaps it will be useful to you, or perhaps not. So I invite you to make sure you're sitting comfortably, or as comfortable as you can be in the situation that you're in. I invite you to roll back your shoulders and unclench your jaw. If you have your tongue pressed hard to the roof of your mouth, don't do that anymore. And just like hold your own head a little bit. Take some of the weight off your neck. And just take a few smooth breaths. And there's something, I think, about this posture of supporting your own self, of really letting your own head lean into your own hand. That does make things start to feel a little bit lighter. Not all the way fixed, of course. We don't have practices that do that. But just a little bit lighter. A related practice that I encourage you to explore, perhaps with someone that you do have a nice connection with, is ridiculously long hugs. This is a tip a therapist gave me, that your brain starts to release calming chemicals when a hug lasts at least 30 seconds, which is ridiculous. It feels very strange to hug someone for that long. But when I was going through some pretty serious depression, that was one of the things that the therapist put on my to-do list. And to just have someone squeeze you for that long and just have that gentle pressure, it helps. I can sort of feel some of the cobwebs and stuff sort of clear out of my brain, so I can get to a place of a little bit more clarity, a little bit more inspiration, a little bit more ability to just put up with this world that is always breaking our hearts and sometimes inspiring us too. And you can hug yourself too. It helps. There's something about that pressure that helps. And there also is something in song that helps, to have these meditation songs that we can return to and have in our pocket in the times when things are hard. So now let us sing together again.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Our first reading today is called The Moon by Frederick Smock. The day lengthens, the old earth tips its hat to the moon. The changeful moon goes through many phases, even in a single night. Though it is the same moon as ever, we know this. We are the changes. Second reading is an excerpt from a 2005 Kenyon College commencement address given by David Foster Wallace. This, I submit, is the freedom of real education, of learning how to be well adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. Because here's something else that's true. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is actually no such thing as atheism. There is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And an outstanding reason for choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it JC or Allah, be it Yahweh or the Wiccan Mother Goddess or the Four Noble Truths or some infrangible set of ethical principles, is pretty much that anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your own body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. When the time and age starts showing, you will die a million deaths before they plant you. On one level, we all know this stuff already. It's been codified in myths and proverbs, cliches, bromides, epigrams, parables, the skeleton of every great story. The trick is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Worship power, you will feel weak and afraid, and you will need ever more power over others to keep that fear at bay. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, and you will end up feeling stupid, afraid, and always on the verge of being found out, and so on. Look, the insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they're evil or sinful, it's that they're unconscious. They are default settings. They're the kind of worship you just gradually slip into day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without ever being fully aware that that's what you're doing. And the so-called real world will not discourage you from operating on your default settings. Because the so-called real world of men and money and power hums along quite nicely on the fuel of fear and contempt and frustration and craving and the worship of self. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. The freedom all to be lords of our own tiny skull-sized kingdoms, alone in the center of creation. This kind of freedom has much to recommend it. But of course, there are all different kinds of freedom. And the kind that is most precious is the kind you will not hear talked about much in the great outside world of winning and achieving and displaying. The real important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort in being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in a myriad of petty, little, unsexy, everyday ways. That is real freedom.
The Question by Rosemary Watola Traumer. All day I replay these words. Is this the path of love? I think of them as I rise, as I wake my children, as I wash dishes, as I drive too close behind the slow blue Subaru. Is this the path of love? Think of them as I stand in line at the grocery store. Think of them as I sit on the couch with my daughter. Amazing how 6 words become compass, the new lens through which to see myself in the world. I notice what the question is not, is this right? Not, is this wrong? It just longs to know how the action of existence links us to the path to love. And is it this? Is it this? All day I let myself be led by the question. All day I let myself not be too certain of the answer. Is it this? I ask as I argue with my son. Is it this? I ask as I wait for the next word to come. Now we are going to sing again, and I wanted to give you all just a little bit of context on this hymn. So this is a hymn called as Tranquil Streams, and it was written about 90 years ago in the 1930s. And it was commissioned for the first hymn book that the Unitarians and the Universalists published together. So it was a celebration of these two different denominations, different Christian or post-Christian groups merging together in partnership. And a generation later, when at our national gathering, the General Assembly, the vote to consolidate these two traditions into the Unitarian Universalist Association passed, this was the song everybody sang after the vote was tallied. So that's a little bit about why I picked it today. And I invite you into whatever posture helps you sing your best, and we will sing.
That's fine.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge to flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless greed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
On a moonlit night, the Buddha was teaching a group of his followers, so the ancient story goes. After he had spoken for hours, he points up at the moon and says, "All I have taught you is just fingers pointing at the moon. The truth is the moon. Follow the truth, not the teachings." In other versions of the story, the teacher, and sometimes it's a different teacher, says, "Truth has nothing to do with words. Truth can be likened to the bright moon in the sky. Words in this case are likened to a finger. The finger can point to the moon's location. However, the finger is not the moon. To look at the moon, it is necessary to gaze beyond the finger." This is a story that is told a lot in the Zen or Chan schools of Buddhism, which have their roots in China and Japan. And these Buddhist traditions are very skeptical of words. They know the limits of language when it comes to the spiritual quest. And Zen practitioners have been known to say that if you can put the truth into words, it can't actually be the truth, because truth is something that is too big or too specific or just too wild to be contained with words. So the teaching encourages Buddhists and others to know the truth as it really is, not as it is reflected in words or in teachings. So they use metaphor. That's the best way to get at this. Whether it's the fingers pointing at the moon, or perhaps the metaphors of our music and communication technology, that there are modes and ways we use to try to communicate the truth, but those modes, those methods are not the truth. There is something beyond that they gesture toward. There's a truth beyond words, and yet as humans, words are the best tool we have often to gesture to that truth. I am a mystic in my spiritual orientation. So for me, the deepest truths, my connection to what is most intimate and most ultimate, is an experience. It is a feeling. They are not things that I have good words for. I feel it when something is happening that is most true in my heart, in my bones, in my body. I feel a holy presence when I connect with others across difference, or am brokenhearted and feel the presence of a love greater than all of us, brokenhearted alongside of me. If you have a mystic streak to you, you know what I mean. If you don't, this is all probably gobbledygook, and thank you for sitting through it. But I love this Buddhist teaching story because it names the struggle and the disconnect that I often feel when I try to speak about what is most true, and what so many of us as individuals and institutions often fail with. The language fails. We can get to the fingers, we can describe how the fingers are pointing perhaps, but we can't see past it to the moon. And yet words are the best tool that we have. So here I am preaching most weeks, trying to capture in words the things that are often beyond words. It's an irony, for sure. A few weeks ago, I trudged through the snow, back when we had it, late on a Wednesday evening to meet with a group of students at Kalamazoo College in the basement of the chapel. The college chaplain had invited me to talk about Unitarian Universalism with a group of interfaith leaders on campus. We have a number of K College students who are UU, a few of them come here, and so there's lots of questions on campus about what are those people anyway? And a few of those interfaith leaders will be coming to be with us next week. It was a rich conversation. I had a little bit prepared, but it was mostly their questions. And near the end, one of the students said, "So help me understand this. The Unitarian Universalists came from the Puritans, but I hear all you were saying about inclusiveness and justice and sex education. How did that happen?" It's a great question, right? Because as Unitarian Universalists, our earliest religious ancestors on this continent were the Puritans. And they were some rigid religious extremists who fled England basically to set up their own little theocracy in what is now Massachusetts, who kept kicking people out when they didn't do it right. And now we are this pluralist, inclusive, justice-seeking. It's amazing what can happen in 400 years, I told that student. And to make that long history short, this change happened because we are a tradition that believes that revelation is not sealed, which is our fancy way of saying truth is always making itself known. Our early religious ancestors, the Puritans, believed in the importance of a personal religious experience, that mystical experience that told you that you were saved. And over time, our sources of religious wisdom have expanded. We now look to the world wisdom traditions, philosophy, science, and other sources alongside our own experience to better understand what matters most. And when you do that, when you are open to new truths, a lot changes in 400 years. We go from the rigid, exclusionary Puritanism to today's Unitarian Universalism. It is our own process of theological evolution, learning and growing and changing in small and big ways to be better adapted, at least as we understand it, to the world around us. And now we are in a moment when we are expanding new theological technology, new words, and perhaps readjusting our fingers so they better point at the moon as we see it now. Or, and to set the metaphors aside, the Unitarian Universalist Association, of which we are a part, is in the process of reimagining Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. And Article 2 is about the purposes and principles of the organization. It's where the 7 principles, parts of which are on our banners up on the wall here, it's where they live currently. It's where those words come from. And aside, for those of you newer among us, I promise I don't preach on bylaws every week. That's not usually one of our sources of truth. And the details of this work and this change might not feel relevant to you at this moment. Honestly, bylaws stuff might not be what stirs anyone's hearts at this particular moment, and that's fair. Not everyone joins a church community because they want to geek out about governance. I know. And this work in progress is important to know about. So I hope all of you hear that we are a living tradition that, as we just sang, reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more. We use democratic processes to decide what words we use to point to what is most true for us. The truest truth, as we understand it here, was not handed down once and for all or created by a small group appointed by God. We find truth together. We search for truth together here. So when the Unitarian Universalist Association formed from the consolidation of the Unitarians and the Universalists in the 1960s, those gathered at the General Assembly passed a statement about the purposes and principles of the association as part of the bylaws. It's really common. What are you here to do is usually in a governance document. And they knew that our tradition would continue to change and evolve. So they included the instructions in the bylaws that this statement of purposes and principles or values or covenant should be reconsidered every 15 years. So the first people that called themselves Unitarian Universalists knew that they couldn't write down one truth that would bind future generations. They wanted those who came later to update our spiritual technology, our words, as understandings and language changed, to switch out our rotary phones to the landline, to the cell phone, to the watch phone, or whatever is coming next. They knew we would evolve and transform and try to make it as easy as possible for the future generations to update things. In 1985, there was a major revision, which gave us the principles and the sources largely as we know them now. And over the last 39 years, there have been some smaller changes, mostly wordsmithing types for more inclusive language, adding in some language about using earth-centered traditions as one of our sources. And a few years ago, the General Assembly voted to authorize a team to consider reimagining of Article 2 as a whole to better reflect who we are now and who we aspire to be. That team completed their work last year, and last June, a series of amendments were considered at the General Assembly, and new language, which is this handout that was by your order of service if you saw it, or you can grab it on the way home if you want. Also, it was linked in our newsletter this week. This is the draft language that's coming to the General Assembly this June for final approval, and a few more amendments possibly. And a supermajority is required for final passage. And aside that if being part of this governance process is interesting to you, please talk to me or a board member. Historically, so as a church, we can appoint 6 lay members to vote on this stuff on our behalf. And historically, we don't fill our spots. So if this is interesting to you, let us know. The General Assembly is happening entirely online this year in the latter half of June. And maybe we'll set up some watch parties or something here if you want to get together and watch people negotiate parliamentary procedure. Right? This is a weird thing that we do, and it's a really important thing that we do. So what happens if this passes and we have this to go with? This doesn't make the principles go away. It just takes them out of bylaws. So if the language of the principles is important to you, no one is going to wash your mouth out with soap if you say them, right? We don't have to remove these and then ritually burn them in the church fire pit. It continues, right? If that's how you best know how to talk about your faith, keep talking about it that way. You might, turn into one of those like people who's really into collecting things on vinyl, and or still, using your technology that other people have perhaps don't use anymore, but nobody banned rotary phones, right? We're not going to be banning anything. But yeah, the words just won't be in the bylaws. And I expect the new words will slowly replace our 7 principles in practice over time. I'll likely preach on the values. You'll see them appear in religious education programs for people of all ages. After a while, if these are our new words, they will become familiar. When people say, Unitarian Universalism, what is that? We might find ourselves saying, love is at the center of who we are. We are a community that has shared values, including justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Come with me next Sunday, and you'll see how we do this. I am both grieving some of the words that didn't make it into the new draft and excited about some of this work. I think the new language points to who we hope to be here. I think having this updated language might make it easier for us to articulate and share our values with others, especially those among us and beyond us who might need what we have to offer in this moment that is so challenging. As author David Foster Wallace instructed the graduates of Kenyon College in the piece that Bob read earlier, everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And not all of us like the word worship here at People's Church. I get that. Don't get distracted by these fingers. Try to see the moon if best you can. Because the truth of this commencement address is worthwhile. Perhaps I can rephrase the idea to everyone has something at the center of their lives. Make sure you pick something good. And as Unitarian Universalists, we could do much worse than placing love at the center. The draft of these possible new bylaws reads, as Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and throughout our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. And the truth is, you all, that love is already at the center here in a lot of ways. So when I was in search to become your minister, that one of the first things you shared with me that stood out was that it was a video of the congregation at that time singing People of Hope, which is people of love, people of hope, people of change. You're claiming an identity of people of love. That's no small thing. And this is throughout our songs and the songs we share across Unitarian Universalism. The Reverend Dan Schatz, who is a UU minister and a musician who serves our church in Westchester, Pennsylvania, took our two hymnals. I know we put them on the board often, or the screen, so you don't always see them, but these are our two hymnals that we use for most of our writing, and put them through a word cloud generator. And once he removed the high frequency words, like the and, this is what he had. So John, can you show the first slide? So that's from this hymnal from 1993, I think, Singing the Living Tradition, the gray one. Every hymn that has a number less than 1,000 comes out of this book. So you can see, love is the biggest word. We're already singing about love a lot. We also see one, sing, come, God, peace, earth, life, heart, and live. It's an interesting collage about what we sing about. And now, John, give us the next slide. So this is the hymnal published in 2005, 20 years ago. Love looks like even bigger by comparison, right? We also see life, heart, land, come, oh, la, love, peace, El. We have a couple of Spanish language hymns in there, so a few Spanish articles snuck through. So we've been singing as though love is at the center for a couple decades now. Isn't that interesting? I didn't realize that. Perhaps it's time for our other documents to catch up with our hymnals. And maybe love at the center will help guide our practices. In the poem I read earlier today, Rosemary Watola Tromer shares a practice. All day I replay the words, is this the path of love? This is a powerful question, a clarifying question that I've been sitting with this week, asking it of myself and trying to follow the answers. Is this the path of love? Is this the path of love? Perhaps you can join me, repeating these words to ourselves, letting the answers guide our actions, letting our answers shift our hearts and in time, the world around us. That feels like a worthy practice. Because this bylaw revision matters really only as much as we live it, right? You can write the most beautiful governance document, the most aspirational mission statement, and it doesn't really matter if it doesn't start to live in people's hearts and minds and bodies and actions. So regardless of how 2,000 or so Unitarian Universalists vote this summer, this draft offers us a possibility. Love at the center, with all of our other values springing out from that. What might it look like, feel like, or be to be a church guided by love, and to acknowledge that we already put that at the center in a lot of ways? So how do we just name perhaps what we're already doing, do what we're already doing better, figure out where love is not at the center and work to make it so? That is the question this moment offers us. And as we do with all of our big decisions in our tradition, we get to decide together. So may we continue to evolve and change and transform and grow in our understanding of what the truth is. May we not mistake the model, the style, for the mission, how we do things for why we do them, the technology for the purpose. And may we strive to look beyond our imperfect fingers toward the moon, past our imperfect words, to find the truth. May we individually and collectively put love at the center. May it be so. May we make it so. Amen.
All right, I invite you at this time to rise in body or spirit to sing our closing song together. Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain, a sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but not be given my love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
Oh, 90 years ago or so, the lyricist wrote, "Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free." He wrote it at a time before we were one people, one church, with hopes that we would figure out who we could be together. It was sung when we figured that out, and now we've sung it again at this moment when we're figuring out who the world might need us to be next, who we might need us to be next. So let us go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. Let us go in peace and go in love.